Beckett Smith sat at the desk in his cramped but orderly home office. The desk had a stack of lined paper located exactly in front of his chair, and a pen lay 5 centimeters to the right, parallel to the paper, and 3.12 centimeters from the top and bottom. The man's face was soft and in his mid-30s. He raised his eyebrows and pursed his lips in an effeminate manner and looked down his nose as if he were trying to peer through bifocals but wore none. He was reading an article on the church website about God's punishment for the wicked and making notes for his talk on Sunday. His phone rang, but he waited until he had finished the paragraph before he answered.
Hi Brother Smith, this is Brother Sawchik, Opie Sawchik.
Hello Brother Sawchik, he said. And what can I do for you?
Someone hacked into our surveillance and seemed to be interested in what Gideon was doing here a couple of days ago.
Beckett turned from the computer screen to his one.
Oh?
I replayed today's video camera footage, and he looks like he somehow got access to our computer and downloaded video of Gideon emailing you know where. I'll send it to you.
Beckett clicked on the link that appeared in a message.
What devil's work can he be up to?
Beckett asked rhetorically. He watched the video and felt sick to his stomach. His counselor, Gideon Johnson, was at the table at Oppie's. All the precautions they took for nothing. How on God's green earth did this sinner find him? He forwarded an encrypted copy of the video to Gideon and waited 10 long minutes, then called him. Gideon was lofty 1.98 meters tall and had gaps between all his teeth as if his mouth had grown too large. He still wore his army brush cut and tried not to march when he walked.
Gideon, did you see the video?
Yes.
Gideon sounded bored.
How in heaven's name did he track you? We've got to find out who he is right away.
The counselor, apparently, couldn't see the same calamity that Beckett could.
We don't have to.
Why?
He's an old army buddy.
What?
We served together in the Ukraine.
Heavens to Betsy. We've got to eliminate him before he learns anything else.
I have a better use for him. He's got a skill set that we need. I've never seen anyone as good with improvised field expedient munitions and surveillance hardware. Give him 100 loonies worth of intermart electronics and a handful of PE-8, and a Ruski's going to die in a hole. He's like a wizard. He made a grenade-dropping drone. It was about 4 feet across and could carry 10 hand grenades. When our guys were going to attack, they would put one guy in charge of flying the drone and he would hover over the enemy, dropping grenades in their foxholes and trenches while we engaged them in small arms fire. It was like a mortar, but with pinpoint accuracy. It could drop a grenade in a waste paper basket from 100 meters up. Then he scaled it up and made a drone that could carry 5 20-liter containers filled with napalm and used it to drop it on the Russian tanks. They called it the EB-109, but the men called it Easy Bake 109. The Russians called it Satan's Piss. Headquarters made some blueprints and handed them out all over the Ukraine, and next thing you know, every pierogi in the country was making Easy Bakes in their basements and the Russians lost most of their armor. For the price of the gas, he would burn up a tank that cost millions. When Easy Bakes were in the area, the Russians ran away from their tanks like scared children. The ones that got caught inside got dried out like beef jerky and you could pick up a corpse with one hand. It looked like beef jerky but tasted more like pork. The Russians couldn't sustain losses like that and went limping home like Napoleon after Waterloo.
He must have won a medal for that.
You would think. His CO put in a commendation, but a desk general in Ottawa took the credit. Kevin was insubordinate to an officer and was lucky to get out with an honorable discharge. Ronald Penner's a physicist.
Gideon went on, referring to their own nuclear physicist.
He knows all the formulas and assorted hoo-ha, but he can't build shit.
Beckett winced at the profanity.
The thumperheads know how to build a machine by the book, but they don't know how to improvise, and we don't have the industrial-sized resources to build it their way. They keep trying triggers, but they all fail. Penner said they should work if we align better them. Some of the patriarchs are thinking it isn't possible to build it that way and are talking about abandoning the Jellyfish Device. God has commanded us to bring his wrath, so there must be a way. If anyone can, Kevin can.
But he's not an apostle. He won't do it.
No, but I can persuade him. He's a bit of a queer duck. Kevin was never gung-ho about being in the forces and his gaffe tolerance was pretty low.
And what in heaven's name is a gaffe?
Give a fuck factor.
I should have known better than to ask.
There was another private he hit off with when he was overseas. Chuck was his name. They arranged to get transferred to the same bases as they moved around Ukraine. Chuck was his homie and when they were going in, they would go in together. One night, Chuck took point on a section recon bag drive, deep in enemy territory. Chuck stepped on a tripwire and took some shrapnel in his legs. Then came the AK fire from the bush and the corporal ordered Kevin to cover their retreat. Instead, he rushed into the bullets and incoming mortar rounds to get Chuck. A funny thing happened on the way to get him. Kevin killed half the Russians and sent the rest into retreat. Kevin's section proceeded to fall back, but ran straight into the park line of fire and was almost wiped out. Chuck, Kevin, and a lance corporal were the only ones who made it out. Some people called him a biff for not covering his other comrades, but he was loyal to his buddy.
I'm not even going to ask what a biff is.
Buddy fucker, traitor.
Beckett was clearly appalled with the profanity and just shook his head.
The point of this story is that he would sacrifice many people to save someone he cares about. If we can get someone he's close to, I promise you, he'll do whatever we tell him.
I hope you're right.
He must be working for McPherson, so I'll see if he can talk him into at least looking at it. That will buy us some time while we find out what, or who motivates him.
Kevin answered McPherson's call. McPherson greeted Kevin and said,
I have some good news. The kidnappers contacted me, and they are making a new offer. Somehow, they found out you were tracking them, but instead of being angry, they want you to do them a little favor. It would go a long way to securing Alan's release.
How the hell? What favor?
Well, you're going to laugh.
McPherson gave a weak chuckle.
You're not going to believe this. These guys are really crazy. They somehow got it into their heads. I can't even say it, it's so crazy.
Just spit it out.
They somehow got it into their twisted little heads that they are capable of building an atomic bomb and they want you to have a look at it.
What the fuck?
I know. That's what I thought too. Of course, it's completely impossible and they're deluded and evil beyond words to even try it.
I can't help them do that. What if it works?
You don't really have to help them. Just pretend to. It turns out, this is what they were after the whole time. The ransom money was to finance their homespun Los Alamos project.
That makes sense. I mean, nothing they do makes sense, but that explains why they all of a sudden need so much money.
You don't really have to help them, since I'm sure what they're doing is impossible anyhow. Just play along and buy some time while we look for Alan and plan a rescue. Just have a look, kick the tires, bullshit them a little and put on a show of doing something. If you don't do it, maybe they'll find someone who really can get it working, if you can imagine. So, it's not just about Alan, it's about saving the world.
McPherson sensed Kevin wasn't interested, and he pulled out all the stops.
Please, Kevin. For God's sake, I'm begging you. They're going to kill Alan. He is everything to me, my only child. I would do it myself if I could, but they seem to think you're the only one. Imagine how you would feel. What would you do to protect someone you care about?
McPherson stumbled upon Kevin's weakness.
This is too much, I'll think about it, okay?
The news was playing in Jade's apartment as she set the table with a plate, chopsticks, and 2 wine glasses.
Today in Ottawa, there was an attempted assassination of the Minister of Justice Pierre LeBlanc. He was leaving his home as a bullet from a high-powered rifle shot him in the shoulder. Police closed off the area and discovered a stolen van with a remote-controlled sniper rifle mounted inside. No one has claimed responsibility, but police suspect right-wing extremists. The hospital reported he was in serious but stable condition,
said the news anchor. Kevin entered Jade's apartment and sat on the couch like an impending hurricane.
McPherson called today, and you are not going to fucking believe this. It turns out the apostles are trying to build an atomic bomb.
You're kidding me.
Jade stopped, turned, and looked aghast. Kevin shook his head.
Deadly serious.
Are they really that crazy? How many will they kill? That explains why they turned to kidnapping to raise money.
Yup. But I haven't even told you the crazy part yet. I don't know how, but they figured out I work for McPherson and told the old man they want me to look at the trigger and see if I can help them put it together.
So what did you tell him?
No fucking way. Then he said he doesn't really expect me to help them, just to play along, stall for time until we can rescue his son. He said giving them fake advice will delay them, and if I don't, they'll find someone who will build it, for real. The only way I can prevent a thermonuclear attack is to go through the motions of helping them.
Jade moved closer and put her hand on his arm.
What are you going to do?
He shook his head and whispered.
I don't know.
Try not to think about it. Look. We're here right now. Let's get something to eat, relax, and then sleep on it. I'll order some takeout. What kind do you want?
Chinese.
Fake Chinese or real?
Real? How about Szechuan style?
Jade smiled that he enjoys eating authentic Chinese food. Soon, the delivery drone was buzzing the door. Jade opened it and tapped her one and the drone's box opened so Jade could take out the food containers. He automatically closed and the little tracked vehicle set off down the hall. Jade laid out agro gel clamshells, filled with food, and then poured the wine. They began eating and Kevin tasted the cubes of mapo tofu covered with spicy sauce and minced pork. The esoteric taste of the Szechuan peppercorns and chili oil and salty fermented bean paste always surprised him. It was spicy, but somehow more than just spicy in a way that he couldn't describe. Then he sampled the gungbao jiding. Chicken, peppers, peanuts and the ever-present chili oil. Eating with chopsticks makes you enjoy the ingredients individually. A piece of diced chicken, a cube of tofu in sauce, a single peanut, with a dab of rice for variety. The food, the wine and especially the company soon relaxed him. Jade enjoyed seeing Kevin be himself again, but there was something nagging at her she could no longer ignore. She needed to tell him but was afraid to say it. She didn't tell people she was not close to since it was none of their business and she was afraid to tell people she was getting close to, for fear of rejection or being outed. There never seemed to be a good time, and this didn't really seem like one either. She realized she should have told him a long time ago, when he first tried to kiss her. Now it would seem like she was trying to, she hated the word, trap him. If she was, she meant no harm in it. Kevin excused himself to go to the washroom, and Jade decided she was going to tell him when he got back. She rehearsed the speech in her mind she was about to deliver.
This doesn't get any easier. There's something I've been meaning to tell you. Something I should have told you already. It's just about my childhood. When I was in elementary school, I wasn't a little girl like all the other little girls, I was a little boy. Insert stunned silence and say goodbye to my newest ex-best friend.
Kevin took care of business and washed his hands. He noticed how clean and put together everything was. A hand towel folded by the sink. Dried flowers in a bowl. A bottle of green oblong pills on the vanity and no water spots or smudges anywhere. The room smelled faintly of fragrant soap that reminded him of something that had happened in his childhood. What was it? He read the label on the pill bottle. Coandrol. He searched it up on his one and a surge of electricity passed through his hands. He placed it back on the vanity and noticed how stunned the man in the mirror looked, then slowly turned away.
Sorry, I'm not feeling very well and I have a lot on my mind.
He walked to the door and slipped on his shoes.
I'm afraid I won't be very good company, so I'm going to call it a night. Thanks for the dinner, it was lovely.
Oh, that's too bad, I was just going to tell you.
Kevin slammed the door and passed into the night.
Shit.
Francis set a vertical screen on McPherson's desk. His motions were uneven and his hands quivered slightly.
This is the dark tunnel provided by the kidnappers. They want you to use it for communications since we cannot trace them. I spent some time analyzing its functionality, and it routes the information packets through various darknet portals before combining them into a stream of video at their final destination. It was likely created by a criminal organization and purchased by the apostles. In 5 minutes, just click here to begin.
McPherson noticed the time with some trepidation and clicked on the button. The buzzing electronic scrambled voice of the apostle began.
Good day, Mr. McPherson. Alan says hello. Share with me how much money you have raised now.
We have raised another 5 million and will have another $1 million by the weekend.
McPherson's voice cracked as he spoke.
Where is Alan? Why can't I see him?
And your employee, Kevin. Is he going to obey?
I've been putting pressure on him and he has agreed to look at your plans.
Well, that's a start, but you understand, we will be more flexible in our requirements if he can provide us with something concrete. We have spent much of our Lord's resources so far and still spending fast. The quicker the plan is complete, the less money we will need. Is there anyone dear to him we can use to persuade him more forcefully?
I know nothing about his personal life, but I'll look into it.
Good. You do that.
You probably don't approve of me or my family, but I'm a businessman. I can help you get what you want and then I can get what I want, which is my son. I don't like what you're doing, but I can't and won't try to stop you. All I ask is you let me know where the detonation will be so I can make sure any people important to me are out of danger.
The righteous have nothing to fear, but nonetheless, we will let you know. We will send you another dark tunnel so Kevin can speak with us directly. Goodbye, Mr. McPherson.
McPherson let out a sigh and stared at the table in front of him. The enormity of the devil's bargain weighed on his soul, but his family was more important. He was a businessman and needed to focus on his interests and those of his family. The apostles were repugnant, but he could work with them. He could work with anyone. He chose not to involve the police, since that could put Alan in more danger. The police would tip off the apostles, anyway. He resolved to treat it like a business deal and leave emotions behind, and leave behind anyone that got in the way. Kevin woke from troubled sleep and squinted at a sliver of yellow sunlight on his west wall. Sunlight in a north-facing room meant the equinox had passed. He felt like he had a hangover even though he only had half a glass of wine last night. Yesterday. Last night. How did he get pushed into being a savior of the world? Fucking McPherson. Why didn't Jade tell me what she was? Fucking Jade. He stumbled to the bathroom in his t-shirt and pajama pants and looked in the mirror. People like her had to be careful these days. Being transgender or queer in any way was more dangerous than it used to be, but they were friends and he kissed her. He didn't know if he would have, had he known. She made him question his sexuality, and he didn't like it. He thought she could be the right one for him. Now he didn't think so. He dressed in a black long-sleeved t-shirt and synthetic denim jeans. Still unshaved and hair tousled, he put a frozen waffle in the toaster and some pre-cooked bacon in the shoebox-sized, infrared warming oven. He turned on his one and noticed an unread message from Jade, but didn't feel like reading it yet. He placed a scoop of ground Cuban coffee and a filter disc in his one-cup coffee maker. The coffee maker filled the cup, and he lifted the lid and put the grounds and filter in the wet garbage can. There were rumors that wet garbage was no longer being composted by the city, but he hoped it was, and he wanted to do his part to reduce the amount going to the landfill. He wiped margarine on the waffles and placed them on the little table. Syrup poured over the edges of the waffle, and he cut off a bite. That was just what he needed. He finished the waffles and was half finished with the coffee before he began reading the message from Jade.
I've got some splaining to do. I guess you found my pills. I was just going to tell you, I really was, and I'm really sorry for not telling you earlier and that you had to find out like that, but yes, I am transsexual.
She explained how she transitioned and what it was like growing up with gender dysphoria.
I'm comfortable with my body now and it is my deepest hope that you will be as well, but if not, I understand completely and won't hold it against you. Can we still be friends? Circle your answer. Yes or no.
Kevin smiled at her girlish question, then drew a red circle around yes with his finger, and uttered the voice command, send. She's a bundle of contradictions, he thought. Next message, McPherson. Kevin. We will deliver a package to you today with a dark tunnel to communicate directly with the apostles. You will talk with them when they tell you and review their plans.
What the fuck?
He called McPherson's number and his aide Francis answered.
Get the old man on the phone.
Mr. McPherson is in a meeting now and is unavailable to take your call. I'll transfer you to his voicemail.
He'll take my call. If he doesn't, I throw his little package in the dumpster.
A few moments later, McPherson's voice came on the line.
Kevin, I was busy. What is it?
Why are you sending me a dark tunnel?
I thought my message was clear, for you to communicate with the apostles.
What makes you think I want to talk to those assholes?
Because you work for me.
What you are asking is far beyond what any amount of money could possibly motivate me to do. If you gave me every penny you ever earned, it wouldn't be nearly enough. If I do it, it will be because I believe it's the right thing and not because I work for you. I don't need your shit.
McPherson paused, then leaned forward in his chair as he explained.
I realize now it was presumptuous of me to assume you would take this on. I apologize. Please understand, I don't like them either, but they have my son, and I would do anything to get him back.
Kevin exhaled deeply.
I would greatly appreciate it if you would help me get my son back, and if you can stall them a little, you might also prevent a nuclear disaster.
Next time, at least ask before you try to sell me to the devil.
Kevin hoped he would not regret this decision but knew he probably would. Dreading the deed, he unpacked the dark tunnel and placed it on his table, pointing away from the window so as not to give away his location. He clicked on the button. He felt like his soul was falling down a literal tunnel of despair and devastation. The synthetic voice of Beckett Smith began.
Hello, Kevin. I've heard so much about you. You have a reputation for making things work. Mr. McPherson may have told you about our little project. He said you would be willing to lend a hand.
Kevin hesitated, biting back on the stream of invectives that were about to come out.
He doesn't speak for me, but yes, I will have a look.
Well, bless your heart. Let's get started. We have a lot of ground to cover to get you up to speed. I'm not an expert on all the technicals, so I'll give you to our very own brother scientist. We'll call him Don today.
The first problem in a DIY thermonuclear device is obtaining weapons-grade uranium or plutonium to achieve critical mass. The uranium has to be uranium-235, and only about 7% of natural uranium is U-235 and the rest is U-238, which will not support nuclear fission on its own. Weapons-grade uranium is 90% U-235, and there are not yet any easy ways of enriching uranium to this level of purity, and it would take too long to mine that much uranium anyway. Therefore, we looked at using U-238, aka depleted or unenriched uranium, instead, and we decided to extract it from seawater. When U-238 undergoes fission, it does not give off enough neutrons to sustain the chain reaction. What if we can get neutrons from somewhere else? That's what happens in a hydrogen bomb, where most of the energy comes from depleted uranium, but the extra neutrons to sustain the reaction come from hydrogen fusion. The problem with a hydrogen bomb is that the first stage is created by a weapons-grade uranium or plutonium bomb that starts the hydrogen fusion to create the neutrons, so we're back to the problem of having no weapons-grade uranium, and we are forced to find another source of neutrons. That's where I came up with the idea of using proton accelerators. Accelerators are not outside the realm of DIYers to build. Electron accelerators were used for television pictures during much of the 20th century. We didn't even have to build them since they can be purchased, but we did anyway since we didn't have the money at the time. In actual practice, we used a deuterium proton beam and a lithium deuterium target which turns into tritium when bombarded, but I don't want to bore you with the details. The bottom line is, what needs to be done is to accelerate a hydrogen proton fast enough so when it hits another hydrogen atom it fuses together to form helium and gives off high-energy neutrons that start nuclear fission of depleted uranium. Well, to be precise, it first fuses the deuterium to the lithium to form tritium, and then fuses that, but I'm getting into the weeds again. It doesn't take much fission to create enough heat to, in turn, create enough fusion and keep the fusion-fission chain reaction going. Since there is an external neutron source, we don't need critical mass and there is no limit on how small or how big the bomb can be. The actual bomb will be onion-shaped with several laser plasma particle accelerators attached to one side. However, one proton accelerator is not enough, and we actually will need several of them pointed at the same minute target to create enough neutrons to get the ball rolling. You would not need an active imagination to think it looked like a jellyfish or a squid. Accelerators point at a 1 mm target of deuterium/lithium alloy surrounded by depleted uranium. The main core was also deuterium/lithium, the alloy called lithium deuterium, and the whole thing is surrounded by a layer of unenriched uranium and finally, a lead neutron reflector. The lead casing also serves to delay the bomb from flying apart before most of the fuel has been used. Okay, in theory we have a nuclear trigger that doesn't require weapons-grade uranium or plutonium and one that we could build in a machine shop. We tested it and we couldn't keep the array of accelerators focused sharply enough. That's where we were hoping you could help.
Kevin thought. They're completely crazy, but they've done their homework with the science.
It sounds interesting. I'll need your plans, drawings, and also hands on the actual hardware.
Kevin couldn't help but be interested in the technical puzzles this presented, even though detonating a nuclear device was a crime against humanity, and if he wasn't careful, he would become an accomplice.